Imagine waking up tonight, 1:17 a.m. Your eyes open. The room is completely dark and completely silent. You're not startled, not anxious, not dreaming, just awake. Your mind feels strangely clear. You lie there for a moment confused, and then comes the familiar feeling, something is wrong with me. I can't sleep properly. But what if the moment you woke up tonight was not a malfunction? What if it was your brain doing something it has done for thousands of years, something that modern life convinced you was a problem? By the end of this episode, you will never look at 1:17 a.m. the same way again. The idea that human beings naturally sleep in one unbroken 8-hour block is not ancient wisdom. It is not how your ancestors slept. It is not what your body evolved to do. It is a product of artificial light, of the Industrial Revolution, of a society that decided the night was wasted time. The story begins not in a laboratory. It begins in the archives of medieval Europe. His name was Roger Ekirch. A professor of history at Virginia Tech, Ekirch spent more than 15 years in archives across Europe, reading diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from before the Industrial Age. He was researching nighttime, the social history of darkness. And then he began to notice something. In document after document across different countries, different centuries, different social classes, the same pattern appeared. People referred to something called their first sleep and something called their second sleep. The terms appeared in Chaucer, in Shakespeare, in medical texts, in court depositions, always the same structure. A person would fall asleep shortly after dark. They would sleep for several hours, then they would wake, not by accident, not with anxiety, not in distress. They would simply wake up, naturally, in the middle of the night, and then they would not try immediately to return to sleep. They would get up, they would pray, read, write by candlelight, visit a neighbor, lie quietly, thinking through a problem. Sometimes for minutes, sometimes for an hour or more. And then they would return to sleep for what the documents called their second sleep. Waking in the middle of the night was not a disorder. It was a scheduled event. It had a name. It was expected. It was used. Ekirch published his findings in 2001, and then a sleep scientist in Maryland read it, and everything changed. His name was Thomas Wehr. He took healthy volunteers and removed artificial light from their evenings. For 4 weeks, participants were given only dim candlelight after dusk, no electric lights, no screens after sunset. And after several weeks, a new pattern emerged. The participants began waking up, not from disturbance, not from anxiety, spontaneously, naturally, in the middle of the night. They would lie awake for an hour or so, and then sleep again until morning. When Wehr measured their hormone levels during this quiet waking interval, he found something extraordinary. Their bodies were producing elevated levels of prolactin, a hormone associated with calm, with altered states of consciousness, with the quiet mental openness that many describe during meditation. This interval between first and second sleep was not simply wakefulness, it was a distinct biological state, a state the human body had been generating for thousands of years, and that artificial light had almost entirely suppressed. The insomnia that millions experience tonight, the middle of the night, waking they fear and fight and medicate, may, for some of them, not be pathology. It may be biology, not a broken body, a body remembering something older than electricity. The architecture of sleep is not uniform across the night. Early sleep is dominated by deep, slow-wave sleep, memory consolidation, The glymphatic system, the brain's waste-clearing mechanism, operates most actively during this phase. But as the night progresses, sleep becomes increasingly dominated by REM. Vivid dreaming, emotional processing, the formation of associative connections between distant memories. The interval between first and second sleep falls precisely at this transition point. It is the biological hinge of the night. And there is evidence that this transitional state has particular properties that full wakefulness and full sleep do not share. The state at the edge of sleep has a name: hypnagogia, the transitional zone where the logical structure of ordinary consciousness begins to loosen. In hypnagogia, distant ideas connect in unexpected ways. Problems that resisted solution during the day suddenly yield. Thomas Edison sat in a chair with steel balls in his hands so that as he drifted towards sleep, the balls would drop and wake him, allowing him to capture the hypnagogic imagery before it dissolved. Salvador Dalí described a similar practice with a key and a plate. The transitional state between first and second sleep is fertile, cognitive territory. And for most of human history, people occupied it regularly, awake in the quiet dark, mind loosened by first sleep. No screens generating cortisol-raising stimulation, just the particular mental quality of a brain suspended between states. So what happened? How did we lose this? In 1879, Thomas Edison demonstrated a working incandescent light bulb. Electric light suppresses melatonin, the primary hormonal signal that tells the brain night has arrived. When artificial light continues into the evening, the melatonin signal is delayed. The result? First sleep is delayed. The natural waking interval is suppressed. The entire relationship between the human body and the night is reorganized around an invention only 150 years old. In evolutionary terms, 150 years is almost nothing. Your genome has not reorganized itself around electric light. Your brain is still carrying the sleep architecture of your medieval ancestor, except it is trying to execute that architecture inside conditions that make it nearly impossible. Consider the 3 a.m. that woke you last week. Your brain, running on biology that predates Edison by thousands of years, may have done exactly what it was built to do. It completed its first sleep. It entered the transitional interval, and it woke up, quietly, without anxiety, ready for the particular quality of thinking that the quiet dark has always offered. And then you checked your phone. You flooded your retinas with blue spectrum light that immediately suppressed melatonin. You activated cortisol by reading something stressful. You calculated remaining hours and began to feel anxious, which is precisely the cognitive state most incompatible with returning to sleep. The waking was not the problem. What happened in the first 30 seconds after the waking was. So, what does this mean practically? First, the light. Reducing blue light exposure in the hours before sleep is not simply a wellness recommendation. It is removing an obstacle between your body and its own biology. Second, the phone. The single most counterproductive thing you can do in a natural, middle-of-the-night waking is pick up your phone. The interval between first and second sleep, historically, was a time of low stimulation. Prayer, quiet thinking, reading by dim fire. Not because people in the Middle Ages were wiser, because the available technology couldn't produce anything more stimulating, and accidentally, they preserved the conditions the body needed. Third, the relationship with waking itself. The person who wakes at 1:17 a.m. and lies quietly, without checking the time, without calculating remaining hours, that person, is in a fundamentally different biological situation from the person who immediately reaches for their phone. The first person's body is still in the neighborhood of sleep. The second person's body has been told that something important and demanding is happening. There is something else that happened in those quiet intervals of the historical night. People thought, not the purposeful, directed thinking of daylight hours. Something more resembling the default mode network, the associative, wandering, connection-making thinking of a mind not focused on any particular task. The medieval physician Avicenna recommended the quiet between first and second sleep for contemplation and the solution of difficult problems. The quiet dark was not empty time. It was a different kind of cognitive time, one that the structure of modern life has largely eliminated. Return one final time to the ceiling, 2 hands, the gap between them. In this episode, the gap is the quiet space in the middle of the night, the interval between first and second sleep, the moment your eyes opened at 1:17 a.m. and the room was dark and your mind was clear and you didn't know what to do with yourself. For your ancestors, that moment was expected. It had a name. It was the interval when the day's accumulated thinking settled into something quieter, when the mind, loosened by first sleep, could move differently than it moved in daylight, when something like the answer to a question you had been carrying arrived not as a decision, but as a recognition. Maybe the question was never why you woke up. Maybe the real question is what your brain was trying to remember, and whether, in your rush to return to sleep, to check your phone, to calculate your lost hours, you interrupted something your body had been quietly preparing to give you.